Hello, gentle marketers. Welcome back to episode 84 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness and not fear and scarcity. I'm Lioznyansky. This is my show. I'm the host here. And you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a better way to market your business. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer. So that's someone who's working in an organization, in a company who does business for good. Maybe you're in the marketing department and you are kind of wondering whether there isn't a better way to connect with your clients. So spring is finally here. I'm so thrilled that there's finally some warmer temperatures and life feels different when it's not like cold and dreary, and I had a sinus infection for 10 days. Now I feel like reborn. Maybe you will even hear the birds chirping in the background. We live next to a little forest, and so there's always a lot of birds in our front and backyard. So anyways, if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations on this show around the 7 Ps of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. And if you're new here and don't know what I'm talking about, you can download your one-page marketing plan with the gentle marketing version of the 7 Ps of marketing at lioznyansky.com/one page. That's the number 1 and then page. And it comes with 7 email prompts to really help you reflect on these different Ps. So today's episode falls under the P of promotion. And I've featured guests before here who talk about speaking with confidence or speaking on stage. It's quite a common topic, right? And when Victoria reached out to me, my gut just told me that she might be different from all the other public speaking gurus out there. And my gut was right. So Victoria Lioznyansky teaches introverted entrepreneurs and business professionals how to overcome their fear of public speaking and become confident, compelling, and captivating speakers. After moving to the US 2 decades ago with limited English, Victoria overcame her crippling fear of public speaking to build several businesses, teach in a variety of industries, and speak in front of small and large audiences. She appeared on Fox Morning News and has been featured in numerous publications, including NBC, CBS, and BizWest Media. Taking her own experiences going from scared to sought-after speaker, Victoria founded Brilliant Speakers Academy, an online public speaking coaching program. She also owns Nutty Scientists of Houston, a passion project about inspiring kids to fall in love with science. So she lives in Houston with her husband and 2 sons. I really think that if you're introverted like me, and I know for a fact that there's a lot of introverts listening to this show, not only, but a lot of them are. And so if you are one of them, I think this episode will also resonate with you. We cover how to not feel judged in front of an audience, what to focus on when you're anxious and nervous, how to become a better speaker when English isn't even your native language. P.S. My native language is not English, and so sometimes I do get really self-conscious, especially when you have 2 teenagers in the house who constantly make fun of your English. Like, my English is rather good, but I do confuse some terms sometimes, or pronounce it the German way, and so it's a funny thing to then speak publicly or speak on a podcast. So we talk about that because Victoria emigrated from Russia, and so she does have an accent while speaking English. What else? Whether to fake it until you make it or not. And also how to be confident on video and not simply appear confident, and so much more. Talking about confidence, have you seen my Gentle Confidence mini course? It's a 10-part video course that is based on my 12 years business experience and comes also with a worksheet for reflection to go deeper into this idea of what it means to be confident. And if you haven't yet, it's a free mini course that you can check out at sarahsanacroce.com/gentle confidence. All right, let's speak to Victoria. Hi, Victoria. I'm so glad to talk to you. So nice to have you here.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so excited about our conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, as I just said in the off recording conversation that we just shared, I do get pitched quite a lot about speaking on stage and kind of that whole idea of speaking with confidence. And so I'm kind of picky, but when I got your pitch, I'm like, oh, has just a nice vibe to it. Like I just let my intuition decide. And so I'm very happy that we get to talk together. And as I also just shared really before, the previous kind of edition of this podcast was mainly targeted towards introverts. And I always ask the question of the guest, do you like to speak on stage or not? And about 50% of the people said, yeah, I'm actually like a real natural on stage. And the other 50% are like, oh my God, no, that's the last thing I would want to do. And so then you shared a different number. So why don't you tell us a bit about your research and data and what you found out?
Yes. It's interesting because when you said 50-50, I thought about I'm like, wait, that's really high for people to say, yeah, I'm totally good with public speaking. And then I kind of thought about it some more and I realized, well, people who come to your podcast, they are already, they're very keen on building their business. They're very much interested in being out there. So your potential guests and your potential guest audience is really skewed towards being in front of other people just because of who they are. Whereas what I'm seeing is there are so many introverts, the vast majority. I'm actually seeing close to 90% of introverts not being comfortable with speaking in front of an audience. And I just want to kind of preface it by saying, when we say public speaking, we don't necessarily mean, oh yeah, it's my job to be on stage and speak to people. To me, public speaking is so much wider and broader than that. And my students, my clients, they could be entrepreneurs, they could be business professionals, people who lead teams, people who are C-level executives, people who are building their businesses. And they need to speak in everyday life. They need to give a presentation over Zoom, or they need to record a live stream, or they need to literally raise a hand and speak up in a meeting.
Right.
Or it could be, of course, being a podcast host or being on a podcast interview, or it could be speaking live in front of an audience. All of that is speaking in public. And I kind of feel like we as introverts, because I'm very much an introvert, we as introverts, because we're not naturally inclined to be the center of attention, right? To be loud center of attention, to be in the middle of a spotlight. For us, it's so much harder to face an audience, not because we necessarily maybe more scared than extroverts, but it's just not our natural habitat. It's kind of the way I see it, and maybe I'm wrong about it, but the way I feel about it is it's not my natural habitat just to be really looking forward to be in a spotlight. But as an entrepreneur, you train yourself to look for a spotlight because that's how you're building your business.
Yeah. And I want to unpack that a little bit because I'm actually in this case as well, right? I just went through a gentle book launch and I very much use my introverted kind of superpower and actually shone the spotlight on others again. I launched during the Random Acts of Kindness week. And so I made kindness the spotlight and I brought in all these other business owners and entrepreneurs who spoke about kindness or used kindness as their business model. And so I'm curious, like, how do we get comfortable by being the spotlight. And that, let's face it, right now, my audience, they're gentle marketers. I call them gentle marketers. And so I know that a big part of them, a big majority, are probably introverts, but there's also extroverts who just want to be gentle in business. And so I think it really applies to extroverts or introverts. And you even said before we hit record, you're not necessarily saying I'm only working with introverts, but that just seems to be the number one audience that is attracted by or resonates with what you have to offer. But so back to the question, how do we become comfortable with being the spotlight?
It's so interesting that you mentioned your book launch, and you said something that is such a key. And this is truly how you overcome the fear. And this may not be all, but it's definitely the first step towards overcoming the fear. When you talked about your book launch, you said, I did it during the Kindness Week, and I shifted the focus from my book to other people. And this is the biggest thing that you can do for yourself if you want to overcome the fear. Because here is the thing, we as introverts, shifting the focus from us to others comes very natural to us, right? Very natural. Like if you think of any, which we haven't had in a year and a half, but if you think of any networking events, right? Let's say you have to go to a networking event and there are all those people, and you usually try to find somebody who's standing by themselves and kind of connect with that person. But normally you wouldn't speak. You would try to ask questions and shift the focus from you to the other person and make the other person the center of attention. And now you're having this deep, meaningful conversation where you're really not even speaking quite as much as you are asking really great, thoughtful questions. And the other person walks away from that meeting going like, that was really such a great conversation, without realizing that what we were doing the whole time was shifting the focus from us to that other person, right?
Yes.
100% true. 100% true. So the thing is, we as introverts, we do it almost subconsciously. We don't really think about it. It's such an intuitive thing for us, especially adults. We're kind of used to this by now. But when we are in front of an audience, we feel we are the center of attention. And that's when the conversation happens in your head that goes like, oh, wait, they're looking at me. Oh my gosh, they're going to judge me. Oh, they're going to find out I don't know anything because I really don't know anything. Who am I? Who am I to be here? Right? You go into that cycle of imposter syndrome of who am I? And the funniest thing is that there is no correlation between that conversation in your head and who you are. You could be a CEO of a company, and so many CEOs are terrified of speaking in public. You could be a CEO of a company, but you go in front of an audience and you begin that conversation with yourself, who am I? And they're going to find out I'm not good enough. So this fear of being judged, this fear of being looked at is so strong in us. But what we often don't realize is that when we are focusing on this fear, we're focusing on ourselves, right? It's me, it's my self-confidence, it's who am I? And the only time you're even thinking about your audience is more of are they judging me, right? Oh, they're looking at me. Oh, now they're really thinking I don't know my stuff. Whereas what we need to do, and again, for introverts, it's so much easier because we do it all the time. What we need to do is we need to shift the focus away from us to our audience. So the question you have to ask yourself, and by the way, this is not going to come naturally. Eventually it will when it becomes a habit, but in the beginning, it has to be consistent and intentional. Instead of asking, what is my audience thinking of me, right? It's a self-serving question, as a self-focused question. You need to ask yourself, how am I going to make them feel? How am I going to make them feel? And everything that you say, everything that you do, you're staying in that zone of giving, of serving. And you hear it sometimes, but you don't really absorb it. But what I want you to do right now is try to really, really absorb it. Literally, you're speaking. And every sentence that comes out of your mouth, you're only focusing on how can I phrase the next sentence in a way that makes the most sense to my audience? How can I say something that will make them feel a certain way? How can I phrase the next thought in a way that serves my audience? And when your brain stays focused on that one thing, how am I making my audience feel? You stop thinking about, oh, how am I feeling? Oh, am I scared? Oh, are they judging me? You're not going into that conversation because our brain can only focus on one big thing. You can't be having both conversations simultaneously. And when you intentionally and consistently stay focused on how am I going to make them feel, and you literally, every time you open your mouth, every sentence is focused on that, you stop experiencing the physical fear symptoms like, heart is racing and you're sweaty and your mouth is dry, because your brain stops sending those fear signals to your body. It takes work, it takes practice, and there are a lot of mindset shifts you have to make with that. But this is really one of the keys to make yourself feel at ease. And at the same time, not only helps you feel more confident and in control, but it helps you truly connect with your audience and truly make an impact, which we're all looking for.
Yeah, when you said really feel into this, how does it feel when you think about this? How you shift the focus to them. And I've heard this many times before. Don't focus on yourself, shift the focus to the audience. What I've not heard in so many words, I think, is how does it make them feel? And I really like that. It's almost like my left brain. I talk a lot about left and right brain on this podcast. It's almost like my left brain stops looking for reasons to judge myself because my right brain is taking over with so much empathy for my audience that's all I can focus on.
Absolutely. This is absolutely right. This is not woo-woo. This is not like, oh, if you only think about this will disappear. No, this is really, truly science. It's physical
not
stuff.
Manifesting, right?
It's not manifesting. No, this is not like, oh, I'm great at this. And right, it's not that same thing. What we are talking about is a real physical process inside of your brain. And that's why, like, for example, in my program, Brilliant Speakers Academy, the first module is all about the science of fear, because you have to understand how it works for it to make sense. And some people, they just don't think in a way that like, oh, well, it has to make sense. But a lot of us are, I'm personally left-brained, very strongly left-brained. And for me, it has to make sense. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to work.
Right.
And what truly is happening inside of our brain is that when our brain perceives that we're in danger, which is we are in front of a group of people and all eyes are on us, or the camera is on, right? As soon as our brain perceives danger, our brain cannot separate dangers at what I call real danger or real fear versus unreal fear, or reasonable fear versus unreasonable fear. It really cannot. We have to help it. And when it perceives danger, it immediately sends fear signals to our body. Otherwise, how would we know that there is danger, right? It's been around since beginning of humankind. If there is danger, our brain sends fear signals, fear physical symptoms, which is what we've all experienced many, many times in situations of true fear and in situations of public speaking where our knees are shaking, sweat is pouring, and we cannot think, mouth is dry, heart is racing, hands are shaking, right? Crazy stuff. But for our brain to stop sending those fear signals, we need to engage our brain in something else. And if that something else is still you thinking, oh, well, what are they thinking about me, right? This is not engaging your brain in any other activities, and continue focusing on your confidence, and fear. And when a lot of people talk about shifting the focus to your audience, they forget to mention what exactly they mean. And so I see a lot of people misunderstanding that concept. They think shifting the focus from you to your audience means now you have to think what your audience is thinking of you. But I'm thinking about my audience. I want to know how they perceive me. No, I'm sorry. This is still self-serving, self-sabotaging thoughts. You're not thinking about your audience. You're thinking how they see you. So basically, you're still focused on yourself. When you truly and correctly shift the focus from you to your audience, you take yourself out of the equation completely. You do not exist. You only exist as a way to make your audience feel a certain way. And that's the key to shifting the focus. And that's why if you literally truly focus on what you're saying in a way of how am I benefiting them, and as your brain is truly focused on what you're saying, how you're saying it, and you're taking it every sentence, one sentence at a time, right? So every sentence becomes about your audience. When you are so granular about shifting the focus, when you're so granular about your paying attention to what your audience needs, wants, and what's going to benefit it the most, that's when the brain stops sending the fear signals to your body. Because there is only one thing it can do. It cannot do a million things at the same time. You all of a sudden realize, oh, I'm no longer shaking half an hour into your presentation because you completely forgot to think about your fear.
Let me ask you something. I want to kind of interject because what I just remembered is that I guess another school of thought is instead of focusing on yourself, you focus on your message. Maybe you've heard that before as well. It's like, well, but you're the messenger. What you should really be thinking about is your message that you want to spread and your passion and your cause and all of that. So what's the difference between, thinking of how your audience feels and I'm kind of answering my own question because it feels like, well, if I'm only focusing on my message, then it's still self-serving.
Right? Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So a lot of times people would come to me and they say, can you help me figure out what I need to say on my live stream? I want to talk about something on my live stream. Can you help me massage it so that it sounds good? And the first question I would ask is, how are you trying to make your audience feel? And they're like, well, I'm here to talk about my message.
Right.
When you are focused on your message only, it becomes about you. It becomes self-serving. And if you're speaking, so let's say you're speaking to your audience, and you're focused on every sentence, just like I was saying, right? But the background on this is that every sentence out of your mouth is you're focused on how you are trying to position yourself a certain way, or it's all about it's all about you, and you're not thinking about your audience in a way of how I'm trying to make them feel. Your message is not going to resonate quite as much, and your audience is going to walk away not feeling that there was a shift in them.
Yeah.
And when we walk away without feeling something different, we just got lots of information and lots of words, but we're not feeling that something shifted in us, we forget those presentations very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's that famous Maya Angelou quote.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely right. And this is the key to being great in front of an audience. It truly is. People forget what you said, but people will probably remember how you make them feel. People don't care how much they know until they know how much you care, right? Mm-hmm. It's that thing. And if you think of any presentation that you've attended, first of all, you're going to only remember a few. The ones you don't remember are the ones that didn't make you feel anything. But those that you remember, you're going to remember how they made you feel. There was something that shifted in you. those are the ones, those are the presentations where that we truly carry with us. And then a week later, we still think about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need to focus on. And so as you are, let's say, preparing for your live stream and you're trying to figure out what you're going to say, again, that preparation, that thinking has to focus on how am I going to make my audience feel? And then you structure your presentation based on that. That's when you start speaking, it's all about the audience. And so when you only focus on the message, you're definitely missing the mark. You are not going to connect with your audience in the most fulfilling way for them or for you. And you will still feel maybe not necessarily fear, but you're going to feel imposter syndrome. You're going to feel a little bit like a fraud. And I think a lot of people experience that.
Sorry. What comes to mind is because right now I'm thinking about, speaking on a stage or things like that. But you started with saying, even at a networking event. And so if you take this idea of I care about my message, then it's like a pitch that you're, kind of pitching this person rather than thinking, well, how does it make the person feel when I talk to them? And so that can be applied then also to Zoom calls, live streams, and the stage. So I think that's it's a big one. I can really feel the difference here. So let's talk about, so that's like the big picture, right? Like the big mindset shifts. That's the being rather than the doing. So let's talk a little bit about the doing. There's obviously this idea of practice makes perfect. so does that apply to speaking in front of us, audience, any audience?
It's funny that you mentioned it, because now that we've talked about, as you said, the big picture. Oh, and by the way, I was going to say before I forget, as we're talking about all of this, and I usually only mention, Zoom and podcast and stage, and when I'm thinking about a meeting, when I'm thinking about speaking, but you personally took it a step further and you applied that same big picture, that same concept to your book launch, which I've never heard anybody say or do. I absolutely applaud you for this. This was brilliant. And I'm sure it was a great success because of that, because you shifted the focus from you to your audience.
Thank you.
100%. So I love that. So I just wanted to say that real quick. But going back to practice makes perfect. When I was in my 20s and I started my first business, a web development company, I was absolutely terrified of speaking in public. Terrified. Like it was a nightmare. I would go all red. I would sweat and shake, and I wouldn't even know what to say. It was just horrible. And it wasn't even that English was my second language, and I was in the United States already at the time. It was more of just me personally being afraid. And everybody was telling me, hey, just do it scared. Just practice makes perfect. Just continue doing it. But here is what I discovered. And now, decades later, now that I'm working with other people, I hear the same story. You continue practicing. You keep on doing it scared. Every time you feel the same way, I'm scared. And you get marginally better, but you continue being terrified and not enjoying it at all because you're constantly in your head. You constantly feel like a fraud. And what I realized is that, when we keep on doing the same thing over and over, which is exactly what practice is, we create a habit, right? And that's why people say practice makes perfect. If you are playing piano, let's say every single day, you create a habit of putting your fingers a certain way, etc. But if you think about it, if nobody has ever taught you to play piano, you've never seen a single video, and you're teaching yourself, you may be doing it quite wrong. Your fingers may be wrong and everything may be wrong, but you keep on practicing and you're creating this habit of playing piano a certain way, and it could be a wrong way. And that may be what's stopping you from ever becoming great, even though you practice 10 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Same with speaking in front of an audience. If you are constantly pushing through this fear, what you're doing is you're creating a habit of speaking scared.
Right.
It becomes a habit that I'm supposed to feel a certain way every time I'm in front of my audience. And that feeling is, who am I? And I'm scared and I'm not good enough, but I'm pushing through it. And I get to the end. Yay, I'm done. You've created this monstrous habit that is going to be very difficult to break. Or you created this habit that now you know you'll never enjoy it and you don't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've known people who have been practicing public speaking, let's say through their job, for years, because every month they have to do presentation. Every month they feel the same way. They're terrified. And practice makes perfect. Only makes sense when you're practicing the right things. The right things the right way. Then practice makes perfect. But if you're practicing the wrong things, all you're doing is you're establishing bad habits. And that's why I do not believe in practice makes perfect. Once you learn how to do it right, yes, then you need to practice. Then practice makes perfect. But if you are doing the wrong things, if you are wrong mindset about it, and if you are constantly feeling the way that you really shouldn't be feeling, which is judging and scared and hating your audience most of the time, right? A lot of people who are scared, they absolutely cannot stand their audience. They think it's an enemy. Not that they hate them, but they think it's an enemy because they're so terrified of them, right? When you're creating this habit, it becomes a self-sabotaging mistake that you are making versus learning how to change your mindset about public speaking, learning how to build a truly unshakable confidence, and then practice it and practice it and practice it so that you develop good habits.
It almost feels like it's non-linear. It's not like practice makes perfect. It's kind of part of the old paradigm. It's like you want to learn something, well, you got to have 10,000 hours at doing it over and over again. Well, as you just demonstrated, what if you're spending 10,000 hours, but you're practicing completely the wrong thing? Instead, you just, learn how to shift your mindset. That takes 1 hour. And then it's not going to take 10,000 other hours. So it's kind of like this nonlinear approach.
Right.
It can really just happen within, one split second where you're like, oh, now I get it. Okay, well, let me try this again and kind of practice smarter rather than harder.
Right. It's practicing smarter, practicing the right things.
Yeah.
And there is another thing that is very important here, and I really want to differentiate it because a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to teach you how to show up confidently by making you appear confident. I'm going to teach you how to appear confident. And what I am saying is, I'm going to teach you how to feel confident. And there is a massive difference between feeling confident and appearing confident. When you feel confident, you're going to appear confident just by default because you feel it. When all you know is how to appear confident, have this fake it till you make it thing going, have this facade of confidence where truly behind that facade, you are feeling like a fraud, you are feeling like an imposter, you are feeling that you are not worthy to be there. When all you know is how to appear, you again are not serving you. It's not serving yourself and definitely not serving your audience.
So what's the work behind feeling confident?
It's like a difference between, so if let's say your arm hurts, right? And somebody says, we do it with little kids a lot. I'm sure you've done it too. We're like, well, let me just put a Band-Aid on it. And the little kids know that if you put a Band-Aid, it's going to appear like it's not hurting anymore. It's like it appears to fix the problem. So when somebody teaches you how to appear confident, they're giving you a Band-Aid. The problem could be with your bone, right? The problem could be under the skin, and the Band-Aid doesn't really fix it. But the perception is, I'm going to give you a Band-Aid, and it's so easy. You just attach it to your skin, done. It's fixed.
Right.
And that's what those solutions are. They are Band-Aid solutions. Whereas when you learn to feel confident, you are completely changing the way you see yourself, the way you see your audience, the way you see the topic that you are presenting on, the way you see everything around you. It becomes different. You see things differently. Your mindset is completely different about all of that. You build the best version of you inside of self, that confident version that you are able to pull on demand. And I call this best version of you your inner superhero, which is still you, the real you, but you build it up. Whereas everything that the best about you is concentrated in that inner superhero. And when you need to turn on the camera and speak, when you open the door to a meeting, when you step on stage, you are able to summon that inner superhero on demand to bring out that best, most confident version of you and be it. Be confident.
It sounds very much aligned with my super gentle marketing superpower. What I think this is really about is this constant dance between the being and the doing. You can keep learning how to do things. In your case, it's, all these speaking on stage tricks and steps and processes. In my case, it's marketing. Or you can not fixate on the Band-Aid, the quick fixes, and actually work on your being. And that's where you're really going to get the results. And they're not linear, because they are just, they're just completely on a different level. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like that's the same thing with speaking.
Yeah, it's such a great analogy. So let's say as a marketing technique, people say, well, you need to have an email list and send emails, right? The Band-Aid solution is when they say, okay, you're going to send this many emails a month or a week, and this is the formula that you're going to use in every one of your emails. Go.
Yeah.
Whereas the opposite, and this is what you teach, is how to truly be the kind of a person who wants to serve their audience in a gentle way and makes email one of those tools. But it's not a formalistic solution. It's something that how it can come from your heart and benefit your audience the most, right? And it's not about the formula. Now, once you learn how to make it come from your heart and benefit your audience, maybe looking at the formula and maybe making your message even better will help. But if all you're focusing on is the formula, then it's a Band-Aid. You didn't address the underlying issue.
Yeah, because you can apply it to any kind of marketing technique after, right. That is the easy fix to learn after. But if you don't have the groundwork, then you're going to keep doing it wrong because it just is not aligned with you and who you are. And that's what I'm getting is that that's what you're saying is also happening in the, there's, like I told you, I get pitched so often about, public speaking, and I never came across someone who said, well, let's work on your being first, because that's really where the secret sauce is not about, sure, I can teach you all these tricks and tips and all of that, but what we really need to look at is much deeper than that. And I love that.
Absolutely. And that's why, in my program, the first half of the program is all focused on developing that confidence. And what's interesting is, and I think you see the same thing with what you do and what you teach. You may be teaching marketing, but the way you teach it impacts everything in your client's life.
Right.
Some things that may not even have to do with marketing, but they see a change even in those areas. And same with what I teach. While I teach how to overcome the fear of public speaking and become a confident, compelling, and captivating speaker, it's kind of about speaking, right? But what I teach is how to build unshakable confidence. And that bleeds into every area of your life.
Yeah.
That impacts every area of your life. And that's why it works, because you fix the underlying issue and then you teach other things on top of it, versus teach all the fluff that comes on top first and give them all these different band-aids, and then they wonder why the underlying issue is still there.
Still there. Yeah. Wow. Big aha moments for me. Thanks so much, Victoria. We kind of talked about languages before we started recording. And so you are not a native speaker. You said you moved to the US before you were 20, right?
I was 22 when I moved. So I moved as an adult, and that was like, I'm going to totally date myself, 25 years ago. Yeah. But because I came as an adult, my accent never went away. Yeah. It's people, when people meet me now, it's very funny, because very often people would say, "Oh, welcome to the United States."
You're like, 25 years.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I sound like I'm literally just arrived yesterday. It's funny. And a lot of people experience that, because a lot of people come to the United States. Well, I'm speaking about US right now because that's where I live. A lot of people immigrate to US during their college years or to look for a job, like as business professionals, right, in their early 20s. So it's same situation. They have their accent follows them. And a lot of times that creates this massive, massive limiting belief, right, that I will never be good enough at speaking, because people will always judge me for my accent, or what if I say something wrong. And a lot of my students come to me with this, and it's funny, because you speak 5 languages, 3 completely fluently, and I think you more than anybody understand that people are not, when you're speaking to someone, you're speaking to your audience, you're speaking to a small group, people are not judging you for your accent. They're not judging you if you make a mistake. What people are going to judge you is that you're being fluffy and artificial and you don't care about them. Mm-hmm. But when if as an entrepreneur, let's say you focus on your audience and on serving your audience, fitting your audience, or as a business professional, you focus on your team, on your projects, on everything that's around you, your audience sees you in a completely different light. They don't listen to those little mistakes you make. They don't focus on them. What they focus on is your whole message, and that message and your caring is real. They're going to forgive you your accent. They're going to forgive your little mistakes here and there. And that's what I think a lot of people need to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wish I could agree with you 100%, but I still have this tiny voice that says, yeah, but I every now and then, probably like now less often than before, but every now and then I get a nasty email, from someone who kind of found one mistake or things like that. And it used to bug me a lot. Now I don't take it personally anymore. I literally I don't reply, because I don't feel like a nasty message deserves a good reply.
Absolutely not.
But I also I don't get into it. But yeah, so there's still this tiny little limiting belief, I guess, that says, well, who are you to,
Right. Who are you to speak to us, right? Yeah. And I think, and trolls, of course, is a completely different conversation. And
you'll get those everywhere, and you get those. Ignore them. Yeah,
absolutely. You could be, again, you could be the best person at what you do. You could be, let's see, who is like a really famous actor who is really, really great. Let's say Meryl Streep, right? Everybody agrees. I don't think there is anybody who will say Meryl Streep is a bad actress, right? So it's kind of universal. I am 100% sure she's getting those trolls too. Somebody will say, you don't know how to act, right? I mean, we know it happens on every level, and we know those people have a lot of issues, and we shouldn't be dealing with their issues. Let them deal with their own issues, and that's why you block, delete. But you have, at the same time, I'm sure, you're getting messages and emails probably every day, or at least once a week. You get a message and email from someone who says, thank you for being you. Thank you for changing my life. Thank you for making this huge difference in everything that I do. And they don't add, in spite of you, making that mistake, thank you for making a difference, right? Nobody has ever said that, right?
No.
Because they don't care.
Yeah. No, it's really like the right people will see you for the right things. The wrong people will always see you for, or will always see the wrong things, right? So it's just that matter of energy where people focus on.
Absolutely. And you don't need those wrong people either.
No.
And that's why it's so important to be yourself and not hide behind any facade. Because if you are, pretending to be somebody you're not, you're going to attract people who are really attracted to that persona that you built. And that's why I always, always, always say you have to be yourself. You cannot build a personality that you're hiding behind. You cannot say, oh, I'm admiring this online person and I'm going to be just like her, just like him. And then, try to pretend to be that person and use the same words, thinking that that's going to give you confidence. Again, that's a Band-Aid, but it's a very bad Band-Aid because that's things that's
exhausting.
It's exhausting, exactly, because now you have to keep the facade going and you're going to attract the wrong people.
Right.
People who are not your people, because your people are going to be attracted to you.
Right.
And that's why it's so important. And your people are going to be so empowered, but by what you give to them. How much you give to them, by everything that you do for them. They're going to be so empowered by that. It wouldn't even cross their mind that, oh, she said this word with a wrong accent or made a mistake in this word because that's not how it's pronounced. That idea will cross their mind only as a fun fact, but it's not going to have any impact on them and their relationship with you.
Yeah.
If you give, if you benefit, if you make people feel a certain way, if you change their life, they will never, ever judge you. And that's why I've been speaking, and because I've built a corporate career, I've had many businesses. And every time I speak in front of audiences, especially in the beginning, of course, I also had exactly the same thing in my mind going like, oh, they're going to hear my accent. They're going to be like, who is she to speak to us? And every single time at the end, somebody would come to me, or several people would come to me and say, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I absolutely loved it. I'm just totally in love with your message and with you, and I want to work with you. Or thank you just for being you.
Mm-hmm.
People resonate when your focus is on them and when they see how much you care and they forgive or don't even notice those little mistakes that you think you're making. They don't even notice them.
Wow. I think that's a good place to come full circle, because it kind of reiterates again, it's all about how you make your people feel. And once you focus on that, the rest is forgotten. Wow, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm so glad my intuition wasn't wrong.
Thank you, Sarah.
I can keep trusting it. So it's been a delightful conversation. I want to make sure that you share where people can find you and how they can work with you.
Absolutely. You can find me. The best place to find me is my website, www.byvictorial.com, which is BY Victoria. L for Lioznyansky, my last name. I'm not going to make you spell it. .com. And I have a lot of free training right there on the homepage. You can find my free videos on the website. And of course, you can work with me inside of my Brilliant Speakers Academy program or my Brilliant Speakers Accelerator group coaching program. And I would love to help you overcome your fear of speaking and build an unshakable self-confidence.
I always ask one last question, and that is, what are you grateful for today or this week, Victoria?
Today I am mostly grateful for being healthy. As funny as it sounds, I am very grateful for that because I did have COVID a few weeks ago, and that kind of shook me to the core because it was pretty bad and it was very scary. And you know how people always tell you start shifting priorities after things like that happen?
Yeah.
And I've never had anything like this happen to me. It's the first time. And I feel so freer right now after it happened because I'm shifting my priorities. I'm spending more time on things that I love. I'm spending more time with people I love. And I'm shifting even things in my business to serve my clients in a more meaningful way. It's interesting, but I am grateful for my health and I'm grateful for having the experience that I've gone through.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're doing better.
Thank you.
But
it's a serious thing.
It's always these moments that, we wish we could avoid, but then we're like, actually, maybe that was kind of a life-changing event.
It was. I truly believe it was. And it did shake me in a good way. And I hope that I'm taking it with me through the rest of my life.
So glad you're doing better. And thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pure joy. Thank you.
I hope you found this conversation as inspiring and maybe mindset shifting as I did. And you'll find the show notes at sarahsandacroce.com/GBR84. Also includes the other links. And please also check out Victoria's website at byvictorial.com. She also has a free masterclass, How to Speak Confidently on live or on video. And that's at byvictorial.com/4 steps, the number 4 and then steps. And don't forget, you can check out my Gentle Confidence mini course at sarahsandacroce.com/gentle confidence. Next week, I'm talking to Mike Mooney about slow branding. Haven't had a guy on the podcast for a while, so I'm looking forward to talking to Mike. He's one of my mastermind buddies, so really looking forward to having this conversation about this idea of slowness, and he's talking all about branding, and we are going to explore this topic of slow branding. In the meantime, let's be the change we want to see in the world. Speak soon.